Good evening to everybody. مساء الخير على الجميع. I guess we can start now. But before then, I want to introduce Dr. Medhat Kamal. If you may, Doctor, can I introduce you?
Yes, please go ahead.
Dr. Medhat Kamal was a teaching assistant at Cairo University from September 1965 to September 1969. Then a graduate student from Stanford University from September 1969 to September 1973. A research associate from 1973 to November 84. Department manager at Schlumberger from 1984 to 1988. Senior consultant at ARCO from 1988 to June of 2000. Then in Chevron was a consultant from 2000 to 2008, senior consultant and group leader from 2008 to 2016. Then the SPE 2023 President Chevron Fellow Emeritus. And now we can start with you, Dr. Medhat, if you may.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you all for inviting me to talk with you this evening. So we're going to be talking about the future of the energy business, and specifically we're going to be talking about the role of the Society of Petroleum Engineers in working with the students and the engineers in order to help everyone continue with the progress in their careers. So first of all, when we talk about energy, we need to talk about the energy framework. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, crystal clear.
Okay. So when we talk about energy, then there are three main points. Number one, that the energy need to be affordable and need to be for everybody to obtain. And that's especially important for... And that's especially important for some of the countries that do not have the means of other countries like the countries in the United States and Western Europe. Then the other thing is that we need for the energy to be reliable. In other words, that every time we need to access the energy is available. And then finally, we need to be careful about making sure that whatever energy we are using does not harm our environment. It does not harm the planet that we live on. So when the other points that we need to be thinking about when you talk about the large picture, first of all, the demand for energy is going to continue to grow. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But it will continue to grow for at least until the year 2050 and beyond. And then the other thing is that as much as possible, we are going to continue to lower the carbon content of the energy that we are using. However, the need for hydrocarbons is going to continue to be resilient. At least until the year 2050, more than 50% of the energy the world is using is going to be coming from oil and natural gas. And we'll talk some more about these things as we go along. So the first question is that, why are we talking about that the energy demand is going to increase? There are two reasons for that. Reasons number one is the population growth. Right now, there are 8 billion people who live on this planet. This is billion in United States standard, which in the Middle East, they call that milliard. So there are 8 milliard people living in the planet right now. By the year 2050, according to the United Nations, that number is going to be 10 billion. So this means that there will be an additional 25% of the number of people who are living on the planet, and therefore their need for energy will increase. The second thing is that the energy use per person is also going to increase, as some parts of the world which are currently not using as much energy as other parts, people in these areas are going to be requiring to increase their forms of energy, improving their level of life, which is, of course, is important. So as you can see in this slide, people in North America, on the average, every person uses 42 barrels of oil per year. When in places like Africa, that number is less than 15 barrels per day, 15 barrels per year. So as time goes on, people in the different parts of the world will be increasing their use of energy. These are the two reasons why the use of energy is going to continue to increase. One single point, when you look at that slide, you find that the vertical scale is in gigajoules. And of course, that's maybe that scale, that measurement unit may not make a whole lot of sense to some of us. This is why I translated that, as you can see on the top left, the thing that the 250 gigajoules is equivalent to a little bit over 42 barrels of oil equivalent. So when we talk about what's going to happen by 2050, all forms of energy are need to be there, and they're all going to increase. As you can see from that slide, on the left side, this is the use of energy in 2022, and then on the right side, this is the use in 2050. So you can see that oil will be needing oil in the form of about 108 million barrels per day, and we will be needing natural gas in the form of about 540 billion cubic feet per day. And as you can see, roughly by looking at that, then that means that about half of that circle is actually used by oil and gas. So the need for natural oil and gas is going to continue be a very important point, at least half of the world energy, at least until the year 2050. Renewable energy share is going to increase, as you can see by the purple side on the upper left side of the circle. And coal is going to be decreasing in percentage. However, the amount of coal that needed is still going to increase. However, the percentage of the coal share of the energy mix is going to decrease. So there are also important points to be when we talk about the need for hydrocarbons, specifically for oil and gas. So the slide you're showing now is a slide, this is a report from the United States Department of Energy. That report was given to the United States Congress, talking about the need for a future for energy. Although this slide I'm showing here is from the United States, it is similar to what is happening all over the world. So this is not, this is just an example, but it is also similar to what's happening in the world. And the first item there, I'm not going to read all this, but the first item there talk about that the oil and natural gas will remain an integral part for the security of the whole world as far as the energy mix. And then another important point, which is maybe more viable for those of us in the oil business, is the petroleum engineering employment is going to continue to be sensitive to fluctuations in the oil and natural gas prices. And the prices are difficult to predict because they change with a whole lot of things happening in the geopolitics of the world. However, the petroleum engineering need are going to continue to be an important part. And there is a pressure on the educational institutions in order to be able to continue to produce skilled professionals in order to allow us to produce more oil and natural gas. The other point which is important, which is the last bullet on that slide you're looking at, is that the transition to low carbon economy will also be needing additional work from petroleum engineers, because some of the renewable energy sources are requiring petroleum engineering skills, things like geothermal, and also for the ability to store carbon dioxide and hydrogen in underground formation, and also as far as producing some of the minerals that are required for some of the renewable energy. I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So some of the critical elements of the petroleum engineering skill set is that when we talk about the new forms of energy, the critical elements of petroleum engineering for what we are producing now, oil and natural gas, and one more time, and that's why we will continue to produce for a long time to come. That one is, we already know about that. But when we talk about the additional need for the competencies of petroleum engineering, for the additional forms of energy, then we know that we actually needing to be, this will be needing for accessing and extraction geothermal energy, be able to the subsurface injection and management of captured carbon dioxide, and be able to store hydrogen, and also in order to extraction of critical minerals and earth elements that are required for some of the new forms of renewable energy. So these are important points to keep in mind. Now, one of the points here that probably I just would like to remind everyone, some of you may already have thought about that or know this, but some of the important points that we need to talk about when we talk about what is petroleum engineering. So our main mission is to provide the world with the energy it needs. And we have been advancing the production of oil and gas for a long time to come. And the main thing is that we need to continue to produce this hydrocarbons in a safe, secure, and sustainable manner. And that's one important point, because it addresses the 3 points that I talked about earlier about the need for energy. It needs to be affordable, it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be sustainable. Now, one of the other important points that we have been around for more than 120 years. And during this 120 years, we have continuously been changing. We have continuously been evolving. And we continue been improving the technology and doing stuff that we could not do before. And we are going to continue to do that, whether it is for the production of oil and natural gas, or was it for the additional forms of energy that our competencies are going to be needed in order to produce it. So we have an important role in the energy expansion. I'm going to talk about that also a little bit later. One of the other important points is that we are citizens of this planet, and we want to keep that planet safe for us and for the people who are going to follow us, just like everybody else. We are doing that. It's not like some people have the need or have the desire to keep the planet safe, and we are not. We as everybody else, we are doing our part in order to keep this planet safe. And then we are unique, and maybe if we have some time, I can talk about that point a little bit later. So when we are talking about the energy, the need for energy, we said, okay, we need to have accessible and affordable energy, reliable, which means that every time you want to see the energy, every time you flip the energy switch, the light come on. And of course, we need to have a green and decarbonized energy. So some people look at that and say, that this is actually a trilemma, some kind of like a difficulty of for the energy professionals in order to be able to produce the energy using fulfilling all the three requirements. I don't think it's a trilemma. I think it's an opportunity for us in order, this presents to us a very good opportunity to be able to actually to fulfill all three requirements, and we do have the ability and the competencies in order to do that. This is why I call our mission Petroleum Plus Plus. Petroleum, that means that we will continue to produce oil and natural gas like we have been doing over the last 120 years. The first plus, it means that we are going to also be doing some work in order to mitigate the concern about climate change. There is a whole lot of the things that need to be done to make sure that people are, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are reduced. There is a whole lot of that work that falls on us. We are going to be the one who are doing it. So that is the first plus. The second plus is that the work we will be doing in order to produce new forms of energy. So we are going to be having all three elements of the work. And then first, let's talk about the first one, which is petroleum. So as I mentioned, the need for oil and gas is going to continue to increase. And we are finding it more and more challenging for us to produce that. But we are continuing with our development. This is an example I'm just going to talk about with you here. Recently, this is just a recent example where we used a drill ship called the Titan drill ship in order to drill a well in the Gulf of Mexico. And this drill ship is able to drill wells as deep as 40,000 feet. And we need to be able to drill that deep in order to produce more oil and gas. So we have now, this is an example of that ship that it actually can drill as deep as 40,000 feet. And it also can handle pressure as high as 20,000 PSI. That has never been done before. Just to recognize, this drill ship weighs more than 93,000 metric tons, and it's 817 foot long. And just to give people a feel of how big is that, if you look at an aircraft carrier, حامل الطائرات, if you look at an aircraft carrier, an example, you find that the USS Enterprise, it's one of the large aircraft carriers, weighs a little bit more than 84,000 metric ton. So it's actually, our drill ship is heavier than that. And it is more than 1,000 foot long. Our ship is
بالعربي كيف تشرح بالانجليزي؟ الراجل يشرح لي.
Hello, is there a question?
You can continue, sir.
Okay, so and of course the point is that the aircraft carrier is longer because they have airplanes that land and take off from them. We don't need that in our drill ship. All what we have helicopters that land and so we don't need that. So that drill ship actually was used into discover in drilling wells for a field called Anchor Field, and that field was discovered in 2014, and we actually started producing oil 5 or 6 months ago. And one more time, we are producing at pressure of 20,000 PSI, and we expect it to keep producing at the range of about 80,000 barrels per day for 30 years. So, by the way, the production facility for the field is all electric in order to make sure that we are reducing the greenhouse gas effect. So when we talk about our need for producing oil and gas, as I mentioned before, the way we are doing that is developing, and it's increasing, and it's continuing. We're going to continue be doing that. Now, when we talk about, let's talk about the expansion of the energy into new forms. And specifically now, because what you asked me, you talk about that, how the Society of Petroleum Engineers are going to be actually helping all of us in order to achieve our competencies in that area. So, so we have, to start with, we have pages that are focused in our Journal of Petroleum Technology, specifically about the expanded forms of energy. For example, if all of us, every one of you, as members of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, if you go to the website, SPE.org, you're going to be able to get information about things like, in that specific example here, about carbon capture, utilization, and storage, something about geothermal, something about energy. And one of the main things that we use in order to help all our students and our engineers do their work is actually having all these conferences where we actually, people present their work and share their experiences. So as you can see in this slide, we have a very large number of conferences all over the world. And specifically, 11 of these things last year were focused on new forms of energy. In the other conferences where they are not specifically for new forms of energy, each one of these conferences has in it a good substantial part where points like all the new forms of energy and climate change mitigations are part of our expansion. So all this information is available to all of us that we can attend. So here are examples of some of the energy expansion events that we have. For example, you can see here that there was a carbon capture and utilization and storage conference in China in April of last year, and one in the United States in Houston. And there is one is happening actually next month in Houston. And they are all over the world. A whole lot of them are in the Middle East, also in the area where you guys are located right now. Another place where we have more information for people is in our technical content, the paper, the publications that we have. And they all exist in one Petro. And in this slide, I'm just trying to show you that, as I mentioned before, we continue to evolve. We continue to change with the need. So in this slide here, it shows that if you look at the column on the right side, it says that from the year 1930 to the year 2024, on the average, 7.7% of our papers or our publications were dedicated to renewable energy, and 2% was dedicated to sustainable content. And but in the year 2023, which is the last year we have numbers for, we actually, a number of our papers dedicated to renewable content increased to 4%. And the number of paper publication dedicated to sustainable content increased to 8%. So we're actually continuing to evolve, in addition, one more time, to the continuous evolvement of our oil and natural gas. The conventional thing we do are we continue to have resources available and information available for all our engineers and students in order to increase their competencies in area and give them information. And as I mentioned before, we have been doing that for a long time. It's not something like we just started doing the last 5 or 10 years, where people are started discussing more or talking more about renewable energy or green energy or something like that. Here is just an example. The first time we have a paper that talked about sustainability was back in 1933, where the paper published in the World Petroleum Congress that talks about how the use of gas instead of gasoline or for heavy oil, for heavy things. Here is another paper that will talk about renewable energy, of talk about the use of fuel cell in order to use that for petroleum product. And this paper was published back in 1962. There are also, we've been also talking a whole lot about how we are going to make an expansion of petroleum engineering education to include, in addition to the oil and natural gas petroleum engineering, but additional forms of energy included. And as far back as 1968, people talking about that it's not really only petroleum engineering, but it is continuously energy resources engineering, where you talk about other forms of resources that we are producing from underground. And as you see, this was something that was written back in 1968 by a group of educators from Oklahoma State University in the United States. Talk about use of petroleum engineering competencies in order to produce geothermal energy. As you can see, in this specific paper here was published back in 1949, where people talked about how we are going to use the petroleum engineering concepts into producing geothermal energy. So one more time, we have been, of course, it was at a slower pace at the beginning, and the pace is increasing now, and we will continue to do that. We are going to continue to have evolved competencies in all the forms of what we're doing, Gustav. We've been doing that, as I mentioned before, for 120 years. There are a lot of papers that are available to all of us that talks about things that happening in the expanded forms of energy. All of us can go to SPE.org and go to One Petro and actually going to be able to open any of these papers. I'm going to just try to show you one of them. For example, if I look at, talk about the emerging technology, I've talked about the paper on the top. If I click on that, then I'm going to be able to, let's go back. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so if I click on that, you can see that I'm able to find the paper in front of me. I can actually read the paper, and I can put all the information I need from it. This is the 3 examples of papers that you have there. So these are recent papers in that form. Another thing which was very important is that what we are doing in order to be able to complete the work in the area of mitigating climate change concern. So if you look at the part on the left here, there is something called the Petroleum Resources Management System. The way people account for the amount of resources that we have available to us, how much oil or gas that you have on underground formation. So in order to make sure that everybody is using the same standards, that not someone, for example, will come and cite a very large number of resources in their field because just wanted to make it look bigger, or somebody else will make it smaller. We've been asked by the regulatory bodies, we've been asking people in the economic world, in the economies, in order to develop a system that everybody can use in order to, so we all can use the same standards in finding out what are the resources. And we've been doing that in the what's so-called Petroleum Resources Management System. And we are the Society of Petroleum Engineers, that's all of us, all of you. The Society of Petroleum Engineers is a group that is actually managing these standards. We're the one who are responsible for making sure that everybody uses the same thing. Now, recently, we were asked to do the same thing for the storage of carbon dioxide in underground formation. So that is what's called the storage management system. And instead of Petroleum Resources Management System, which is called PRMS, we have developed now a system that's called the Storage Resource Management System, SRMS, that actually makes sure that everybody, when people talk about, I have developed a system in order to be able to sequester CO2 under the ground, everybody's talking about the same thing. And we are the ones who are actually responsible. Of course, we are applying all the petroleum engineering concepts that you are all studying at your university. We are using this concept to make sure that everything is looked at in a technical term. Another form we're doing now when we talk about our efforts to produce new forms of energy is our effort to produce geothermal energy. And people all over the world are recognizing that we're the one who have the competence to do that. What you are looking at here is this is a program that is funded by the United States Department of Energy that is called GEOD, and that stands for Geothermal Energy based on oil drilling experiences. This is what GEOD stands for. Geothermal energy from oil and gas demonstrated engineering. And that project, the main form of that project, the main function of the project is actually be able to make sure that we are developing the technology that we are using in drilling and producing oil and gas is used by the people who are working in the geothermal energy. So this is a very good program that, of course, it will require a whole lot more additional research that is being done in different universities in the world, and the Society of Petroleum Engineers is the one who is managing that as an agreement we have with the Department of Energy of the United States. And in another way, where the Society of Petroleum Engineers is actually helping our students and our engineers increase their competencies is from the Journal of Petroleum Technology. We have more than 500 articles related to the energy expansion. And one more time, all of you can go to, I'm sure you get JPT electronically every month, and you have this information. Here is an example of an article involving a topic about how to, if we actually have oil and gas wells, and we are repurposing these oil and gas wells in order to make geothermal, use them in geothermal applications. That's just an example for that. Here is another article about how that ExxonMobil, which is one of the large international oil companies, is actually using drilling technology in order to produce lithium, which, as you probably know, this is one of the rare elements that is needed in order to use in the batteries of electrical vehicles. So when we're talking about having the large expansion of electrical vehicles, and in order to use the lithium that's required for these batteries, this is one of the examples of the things we are going to be doing in order to increase the people use of that as well. And another way that we are actually having more information available to people about sustainable energy transition is through the articles that we have in the SPE journal. As you probably know, the SPE journal has different sections. Section for drilling, section for completion, section for production, section for reservoir engineering, and it also have a specific section for new forms of energy. We call it sustainability energy. Another thing that we're doing, and I invite all of you to become more aware of it, is what is presented through what we call the Gaia mission, which is a program that we have at the Society of Petroleum Engineers. That is, we're trying to reach, share knowledge within our members and all of us, so we're able to know what are the services that are available through the work that we are doing. Now, one of the additional things that the SPE is doing in order to help us, all of us, with our work is through not only papers, but through the energy stream. These are stream like, podcast, streamline, things that of course you all can get, and you see that the energy stream content is as you can see here, it covers all forms of energy: drilling, reservoir management, leadership, and sustainability. And you can see that when you look at the energy transition and sustainability, then we have something like about 10% of our contents now in that area. Of course, we're continuing to have information. These are lectures and podcasts that we also listen to and hear from. And then the good advantage of that, of course, is that if you cannot see the podcast at the time, it is available and you can access it later. Here's just an example of one of these podcasts. We also have distinguished lectures. These are every year we have about 30 of the prominent members of SPE. Each one of them is presenting a distinguished lecture, and they actually travel all over the world, visit SPE sections and student chapters, like your student chapter, and present these lectures. And these lectures are all served also, they're all recorded and available. This is just one example of an article on carbon capture and sequestration. And just because of the interest of time, I'm not going to go through that. But if, for example, if you click on that link here, you'll actually going to be able to see the lecture. And anybody can do it. We have a very large group of lectures available. That distinguished lecture program has been going on for more than 40 years now. Of course, recently we have more lectures in the area of energy expansion than before. We also have webinars, and we have training courses. And one more time, if I click on each one of these, I'll be able to see this information. This is just an example of a training course. One of the other things that are important for us are the technical section. We have geographical sections, like the section you have in Yemen, where you actually geographically, people are close to each other. They go to meetings and they listen to talks and they exchange information and network. We also have technical sections that these are done electronically. And the technical section is just not people in one area, but these are people in one specific area of technology that they like to get together. And you can do that because this is done virtually, electronically, like the meeting we have right now. So this is actually people all over the world can join any of this technical section. So we have technical section in all forms of our industry. We have something in drilling, we have flow assurances, geomechanics, hydraulic fracturing, reservoir engineering, research and development. But specifically, I want to get your attention to the ones in red. The ones in red, these are relatively new. They are not like new like last year. Relatively new, which means that We have them only for the last 10 years or something. And they are involved in the new expanded forms of energy, in addition to the oil and natural gas engineering that we've been working on. So all these technical sections are available. Each one of you have the right to become a member of any of these sections, as many of them as you want. And you actually be able to see whenever they have meetings, you can actually join these meetings and you can look at them. Of course, some of the time, because we are an international organization, we exist all over the world. So sometimes some of these lectures or some of these meetings may not be at a good time for everybody. You know, a meeting may happening while it's in the middle of the night, some other parts of the world. But these sections are all of them are working to make sure that their meetings are happening at different times of the day, such that our members in different parts of the world will be always able to attend. So as you've seen, as a Society of Petroleum Engineers, we are continue to strive to have in front of all of our members, student members, young professionals, and experienced engineers, a whole lot of information that talking about the new changes in the technology and the new changes in the new forms of energy that we need to be working on. And one more time, I actually encourage all of you, if you have not been doing that yet, to go to SPE.org and go ahead and keep on looking at all the different things. Find out what you can access, and you're going to find that it will be very helpful to you in doing a whole lot of work. So these are all the slides that I have today. We only have few minutes left. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Well, first of all, sir, huge thanks to you for that rich material that was very helpful for us and had given us an insightful preview of petroleum engineers. Hello?
Yes.
Do you hear me? Yeah. For these new areas of interest, like hydrogen and geothermal and CCU, you think, sir, that students must focus on these things for the future job market, for example, to get more opportunities in the world?
Absolutely. For example, just let me give you a simple example. A while back, when I was a student like you guys are now, there was no such a thing as reservoir simulation. Didn't exist. It was just starting to be a new forms of technology available. So when I went to university, I did not study reservoir simulation. Didn't exist. But now it's, as you all know, a very important part of our industry. So right now, fast forward right now, when we talk about things like what are the difficulties or the challenges that meet us when we try to inject carbon dioxide under the ground and keep it there for hundreds of years. It's not like we're not, right now, for example, we inject water flooding, but we inject the water and then we produce right away. But when we talk about carbon sequestration, we want to inject it and make it stay under the ground for hundreds of years. So there are technologies that's being developed in there. And all of us, whether we are students or we are young professionals or experienced engineers, we need to be aware of that. And the articles and the conferences and the distinguished lectures that SPE is providing actually will allow you to have that. And I'm sure also that the curricula, the courses that are being taught at universities now gradually are including these topics. So maybe you don't see a whole lot of them everywhere now, but also a whole lot of topic. And another example, important example, is that which has nothing to do with renewable energy or new forms of energy, but it's an important topic as far as the advancement of technology. When you talk about data analytics and machine learning or artificial intelligence, and how these things are used in petroleum engineering in our industry today, these are some of the new competencies that all of us need to be learning. And I know that universities, a little bit by a little bit, are offering courses in that area, so such that all of you will be better equipped once you actually starting your work.
Thanks, sir. If there is any other question from any other students, they may ask.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please
Yes,
go
I
ahead.
have one question.
I can take one more question.
Could you hear me? I have one question.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. As we are the new generation of the petroleum industry, how we could deal with the flaring of associated gas nowadays?
I am sorry, I don't think I heard you right. Your question is that how we can...
As we are the new generation for the petroleum industry, so how we could deal with the flaring of associated gas?
What gas?
How we could deal with the flaring of associated gas, as we are the new generation.
No, doctor, I think he said he meant associated gas on the when drilling the associated gas in the field.
You mean the
What-
associated gas that are producing from the from the oil fields?
It's a question about the flare. Yeah, what the solution about the flaring this gas because the new generation.
Well, okay. When we talk about associated gas, there are several things. Number one, the associated gas, of course, is hydrocarbon, which means that we can also this is something a form that we can actually people use that to produce energy. But when we're talking about one of the challenges that we have is that making sure that we do not have any of this gas released into the atmosphere, in other words, leaking into the atmosphere. We need to make sure that our facilities are keeping all that gas in the proper place. And there is a whole lot of new advancement in the monitoring of the gas and detection where it exists, and actually how to keep it. Now, this gas is actually a source of energy that we use. Number one, we can use actually in the operation of our fields, and we also can use that. Of course, we can actually re-inject it if needed to, or it's feasible, in order to increase the production of oil. So it is a conventional part of petroleum engineering, how to produce it, how to manage it, and how to use it in our work. And I think it's one of the things that we'll need to be learning about that as well. I apologize as my time has run out and I really need to log off here. So one more time, I want to thank all of you for inviting me to talk with you this evening. And I look forward to hopefully maybe getting to meet some of you whenever we are existing in one of the many of the SPE function. And you have, I understand you recorded the session, so you'll be able to look at it and maybe you can share it with other members of your student chapter in the future as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, very huge thanks to you, sir, again, and sorry for thanks for your time and effort.
Thank you. You all guys have a good day.
Have a good day, sir. الأخوة الحضور، انتهت السيشن مع البشمهندس مدحت كمال. وإن شاء الله سيتم رفعها على قناة اليوتيوب الخاصة بالشابتر، وأي استفسارات أو أسئلة ممكن تتوجه في الواتساب. وشكرا لكم جميعا على الحضور.